Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast 123 Eyes on Me. Here we talk about all things education, what's working, what's not, and ways to improve the system. As always, the goal here is very simple: help the kids succeed. My name is Aaron, aka Mr. Jackson, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Amanda Cook. Thank you for joining us, Amanda. Care to give us an introduction?
Thank you for having me, Erin. Yes, I am Amanda Cook, and I was a dance teacher for 13 years in public schools. I now run a nonprofit called The Teacher's Edge. Our purpose is to elevate the teaching profession and provide rich professional development and authentic community engagement. I'm also a TEDx organizer, and I'm running for school board.
Perfect. This is great. So we're going to go ahead and play a quick game. It's called One for One. I'll say one
Okay,
word and you'll reply with one that comes to mind. And I have a total of 4 words. Are you ready?
ready.
Cool. First word is school.
Teacher,
Second one is students.
success,
All right. The third one is money.
matters.
Hmm. And then the last one is time.
Scarcity.
You said matters. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Well, I think a lot of people's perception is that a lot of money is spent on education. I think that the perception that I had as a teacher was that it was not always spent on the right things. And we weren't always aware of how the rules worked around money and budgets. It just seemed kind of closed off to me. So I think it is important to kind of unveil the mysterious budget and allotment process.
Of course. I definitely see that as well. So thanks for playing. Quick little game. It was really quick.
That was fun.
So Amanda, tell me, what's one thing you really enjoyed while working in the education system?
Well, I always loved working on curriculum integration and making my lessons more real world experiences for students. And it's the thing that I still love to do now, to brainstorm with teachers and help them really think about why students should learn certain things and then how you can make that applicable so that there's almost like an authentic performance aspect to the learning as opposed to, as some people might say, like eating your vegetables, learning for learning's sake. I really enjoyed making it fun and engaging and useful.
hmm I love that. That goes in with your experiences when it comes to that, community engagement. So you want to make sure that not just, throwing all of the academics or whatever it may be to the students. You want to really make sure they're grasping it and they're having a good time. So I like that a lot. Not a lot of teachers have that mindset that you need to have fun while you're learning. Because even for myself, I used to battle with this. Learning needs to be fun, but sometimes I'm thinking, should it always be fun? And of course, there's a place and time. But I like how you just said it. You always want to make sure that you're engaging your students.
Because I think the misperception too is that games are fun, or that you have to give candy or prizes in order for it to be fun. But I actually found that students enjoyed overcoming challenges. They liked solving problems. They like feeling that they have some responsibility,
hmm
or a lot of responsibility. So the things that people think are fun are not necessarily what's fun for all kids.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, that's really good to note. Now, this can be very minuscule or fairly large, but what's one thing that you change within the system?
Oh man, there's so many things to choose from, but I have to say that the standardized curriculum would be the number one thing that I would like to see changed.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie, I did a lot of substituting last year when I left the classroom myself, and I really loved substituting, and I really loved the fact that, if I was going into a kindergarten or first grade class, that the literacy lesson was written out word for word for me. So, because I didn't have any training
hmm
in teaching literacy to that young age, but the pressure on teachers to stay on track and stay on the pace of everyone else in the whole district or the whole state just does not make sense, because I saw firsthand how different each school was and how different even the needs from classroom to classroom were. So I really would love to see that practice out the window.
Definitely. the first thing I think about is, like standardized testing. That
Mhm.
it fails. It's not good. We have your at least when I was in school, I loved when we had what is it called? Scantrons when you had to do the bubble and A B C D E. I would hate the E though, because of course it's like, oh, choose all the above. I'm like, come on.
Exact
Yeah, I really do enjoy having project-based assessments because that determines their intelligence, because
Mhm.
intelligence is when they learn something, but then they also have to apply it. You can't just take a test because you just memorize stuff to pass and then you'll forget it. You usually do. So we're on the same page with that. Yep.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of asking the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I just think it's too far out there because a lot can change. So what are you striving to accomplish in the next 6 months to a year, apart from the candidacy?
Yes. My nonprofit is looking to host a teacher-led conference in the spring of next year. So that's pretty much within the next 6 months to get that fully funded, to run it under the TED Ed license so that we can really, speaking of elevating, like elevate our local Guilford County teachers onto the TED stage with their big ideas and to allow a lot of teachers to come and learn from each other, share with each other, and just have a day of community with each other. That's my dream right now.
It sounds upscale as well. It's one
Mhm.
thing for someone to have something on a smaller scale, like a smaller group come together and plan something, but it's another one, it's larger. As you mentioned, the TEDx, you have people coming out, you have a whole day. It's not just one event where you're kind of just listening to someone talk, but you get to do things like you mentioned, the community engagement. So I can tell you're very passionate about that. And we
Mhm.
need that because the more people we have, the more will get done. I think that's very important because, of course, one or two people, you'll get a lot done depending on that individual. And we've had those, those leaders in the past. But the more people you have behind you, that band or that choir, you can really make a lot happen. So I'm glad that you're really engaging people to, fight the good fight. I only ask this because ideas float around in one's head, but that's all they'll ever be. They'll just be ideas if they float around. I don't expect someone to actually accomplish, something starting up a business in 6 months. I mean, it's possible, but I don't expect that. But if that person just grabs a pen and paper or, whips out their phone to create a short timeline, this begins to put things into perspective. And then suddenly far fetched ideas become very much possible. As a good friend of mine on the podcast a while back, Rakeem once said, if perceptions change, a lot could get done. So
Mm.
perspective is everything. I know that one of those cons were the curriculums are getting rid of those. What's anything else that you can possibly think of that you would really try to change?
I think one issue that I see, I wouldn't say it's a problem. One issue that I see is that teachers often don't view themselves as professionals. I've
Hmm.
heard even my own friends say things like, oh, my friend with a big girl job or big boy job or something like that. That kind of insinuates that we are not the same as our friends. And I think a lot of that comes from the institutionalization of teachers, where we
Mhm.
don't leave the building during the day to go out and run errands or go to lunch. So we kind of see ourselves almost like trapped in this endless student perspective. I want to change that. That's one of the number one goals with my nonprofit is to treat teachers like professionals, to talk in professional terms, to make them feel like grown-ups that can make choices for themselves and to really own that and to own that when they go back into their building that they are an adult, they have a degree, they have their own autonomy and that they should be able to use that within their profession.
I hear that a lot, and that goes back to the whole perceptions if they change. If we start respecting the teachers as much as the students, you can even take it further and say, do you really respect the students by the way things are going? But I
Mhm.
think that's very important to note. So with your, engagement, your nonprofit, I can tell, like I mentioned before, you're passionate. You're really striving to get that because when I graduated college a few years back, I was looking for a career and I was like, what am I going to do? I would just tell people I'll be a teacher just because it's so practical. Like whatever subject you want to do, teaching is like the foundation. I was proud when I got that first salary position. Like it meant a lot to me. But after a couple minutes, not minutes, after a couple months, I was there and I just wanted to do so much. I'm like, there's so much I want to do, but I can't do it here. I just can't. There's so much that I wanna accomplish, and there's so many issues within the system. That's why this podcast was created. I just wanna make sure I really not necessarily leave an impact, but change something that's clearly wrong. The recent like severe teacher shortage, or like on NBC, different news stations. The shortages have been happening for decades now, but it's continuing to drop. COVID or not, this would have happened anyways. I just believe COVID sped it up. But I think one of those ways to get them back into the classroom, apart from raising teacher pay, and as Amos Quick, the representative I spoke to the other day, as he mentioned, infrastructure, resources for the teachers so they don't come out of their own pocket with the little money they get. If they respect themselves and other people see them, and other countries, I know Finland, like the the system is amazing over there, and education is usually free in other countries, but here, like, there's a dollar tag on everything, so it's like, can we really respect them if we see how much they make? And that's only a piece of the puzzle. If we can give them more money, that's one thing, but if we can just really respect them first, I believe everything else will fall in line.
It's really interesting how they all tie together because, you mentioned standardized testing. Well, standardized testing is a way that private industry makes its way into the school because you have these low test scores. They now have a curriculum to sell you so that you can increase your test scores.
Mhm.
They change the test every year and the grading changes every year so that there are certain schools that will never succeed. They have Title I dollars. They have these companies know that that money is available for them to, purchase curriculum, and they are selling it hard. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to talk to a curriculum salesperson, but it's the same as talking to a car salesperson. And that's not to offend anybody who sells cars, but there are certain techniques and methods that they use, and a lot of it is fear-based, and they pull on your heartstrings about helping children and all of this, but really, it is just about money,
Mhm.
and I think that a lot of people don't realize how much this is happening, how much they take advantage of grants. They watch to see what schools get what grants. They know all of the rules. They know how to tell you how to spend the money. They are in the pockets of the policymakers at the local, state, and national level. So when I say money matters, I mean, it really does matter. I think that that we just constantly assume that teacher salaries are, there's no way to make the salaries better or to provide more resources, but that's definitely not true.
Yeah.
This is just one example I was thinking about this week that I was talking with. I'm on vacation with 4 teenage boys that are going into 8th grade. And the issue came up about checking out textbooks, which is something that we used to do when I was growing up. You got a science book, a social studies book, a English language arts book, and a math book for the year, and then you turn them back in at the end of the year.
Mhm.
Well, that doesn't exist anymore. Kids are given math workbooks multiple times a year. So every student in every school, pretty much kindergarten through at least 8th grade, if not parts of high school, is issued multiple math workbooks. Well, that adds up to a lot of money that we used to not spend. So that's just one example of how these textbook companies have really gotten smart about how to spend our education dollars.
Mhm. That's just sad because, and I don't mind sounding ignorant. I did not know this because when I was talking to a representative the other day, I was saying, "What if it was so crazy?" Don't laugh at me, but I was
Okay.
saying, when it comes to having so much money, you put so much money towards this issue, so much towards that issue. Some things don't get fixed because we're spreading all of our money thin instead of really tackling one thing at a time. I really do believe if we just all come together, if we have that unity, we can really attack a problem and it'll be done. We don't have to worry about it coming back up because everyone's attention is just on different things. But what I said was, and it was less of actually making it happen and more of just having people talk at the round table. I was saying, of all these buildings we have for schools, I was a music director, so I was in a classroom at one point, but then when I taught younger students music in elementary, and a lot of fine arts teachers actually, we taught in modulars. I was like, what if we just have more modulars or trailers and less buildings? And Amos, the representative, he told me, he was saying there are pros to that, but there's a lot more cons. He hit the cons first, so I kind of flipped it in to make it sound better. No matter how ignorant it may sound, I believe they need to have those conversations because we need to cut corners somewhere. But then I realized what you just told me, that's not cutting a corner. That's just doing what's right. Because I guarantee you, most of those coordinators are not teachers. They don't see students, so they don't have that heart. They don't have that empathy.
What's funny too is my first year teaching, when I found out about central office,
Mhm.
I was like, "Do what now?" These people are in this amazing corporate style building with unlimited printing, and they have a gym in Forsyth County. I don't think they have anything that nice in Guilford County, but they had like a cardio lab with,
Mm,
machines and all kinds of stuff right there in their building. I mean, just everything at their disposal.
mhm.
And meanwhile, we're all back at the school trading paper like we're back on the Oregon Trail trying to survive. I was like, why does this building exist? These people should be working in a building with everyone else, feeling what we feel, seeing what we see, and if there's a sub shortage, they should be covering classes. These are people with teaching degrees. Why do they need to be in this corporate office?
Mhm,
And, I still somewhat believe that, especially now with remote work being so much easier to do, that meetings can be held over Zoom or Teams, and there really isn't a need for them to be in a different kind of building.
mhm,
So I don't know. I haven't really changed my beliefs even 15 years later. I still kind of don't understand why we're paying for that real estate, while our schools are crumbling
mhm.
around us.
Definitely,
So
yeah. The money needs to be redirected, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really good that you noted that. I'm glad you said that. It's terrible. That was great. So, to close out, do you, Amanda, have any advice or words of inspiration for the listeners?
Well, I have always believed this, that finding your teacher friends early and maintaining those relationships is the number one thing that will help everyone. It helps students, it helps teachers, it helps creativity and passion thrive in buildings. When people are isolated, then things get very dark and it spreads like a virus. So, if you are in good, stable friendships at your school, start looking for who is not and invite them in and help nurture and foster them. I am so grateful that throughout my whole career, I had great friends. I'm still in contact with them, even though I'm not in the classroom, and we supported each other. We brainstormed, we ate lunch together, we sat together at meetings. And it wasn't about being in a clique, it was more so about having someone that had your back and that was a safe place when you needed to say something or share something or needed help. You had that person. So I'm just a big proponent of find your friends and then make sure other people are taken care of. And I think that will make a huge difference.
I love that, and I couldn't agree more. A quick story, actually. I used to work for Verizon a couple of years back, well, not even a while back. I hated it. I don't like using that word a lot, but I could not stand it. But I told myself, I was like, and one of my friends, I got him to work there with me eventually. But if I had all of my friends there, I knew it would be completely different. Those relationships mean a lot. I wouldn't see it as work anymore because I have my friend on my
Mhm.
left, on my right.
Yes.
Friendships are very, very important. So I could not agree more with that. So that's great. I'm glad you said that as well.
There's a lot of silly stuff that goes on in schools with teachers. Like the people, I always love to find the people who play practical jokes, like really nice, well meaning practical jokes. But like, I mean, I've had friends who we created like a traveling trophy that was made out of some old student art that, you know, wasn't very attractive. And we made a certificate and sent it around. We'd sneak it into people's rooms. Like those types of little missions and activities are what help you get through hard times of year where
Every
there's no
time.
holidays or breaks. So,
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah, that sounds fun. That's great. All right. Well, Amanda, that was amazing. Thank you for those words of wisdom. That was great. Well, everyone, that concludes today's episode. Stay tuned for more words of wisdom from those who are featured on the podcast. 1, 2, 3, Eyes on Me. Amanda, thank you again. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be here.
thank you for having me, Aaron. I loved it.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day and take care.
Thanks, you too.